Yo, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is LionHeartZ, and after taking a day off from the major action, I'm here to talk about the pick'ems going into the playoff matchups. Now, I, just like you, am but the humble pleb. I'm not a professional analyst, nor am I a former pro player. I'm just someone who watches a lot of pro Counter-Strike. So my angle coming into this is to give you guys the layman's view of the playoffs, how these teams have played thus far in this tournament, what you can expect from these matchups, and hopefully some correct pick'ems predictions. So if you haven't locked them in, make sure you watch the whole video, and before we get started, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm and helps me with my goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers as fast as possible. While you are down there, consider becoming a member of the channel. For $5 a month. You can support me directly in what I do here, and gain access to exclusive emblems, emotes, and a shout out at the end of every video, as well as more features coming soon. And also consider following me on Twitch. I stream Sunday through Friday, 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, link down below, and let's get started with the pick'ems. Alright, so if you've been living under a rock recently and haven't seen what happened in the elimination stage, our teams who qualified to the playoffs are Cloud9, Vitality, Team Spirit, Faze Clan, Eternal Fire, Navi, MOUZ, and G2. And as for the split up of this bracket, things got really interesting. Because of underperformances from teams like Faze Clan and G2, we were robbed of some potential later on matches that we've been looking forward to. Faze Clan were one of the tournament favorites coming into this. We expected maybe a Faze Clan Spirit semifinal or potential final in this major, but because Faze struggled early, they now have to face Team Spirit out the gate, which really changed the landscape of how this tournament could go. But we'll get more to that in just a minute. Let's focus on our first quarterfinal matchup, Cloud9 versus Vitality. Now coming into this, Cloud9 during this tournament had already lost to Spirit in a best of 1, however they then went on to beat Ecstatic, G2, and then Navi in a best of 3 to qualify to the playoff stage. Along the way, Cloud9 have played some pretty good Counter-Strike. They're also one of the few teams that made it all the way from the opening stage to the playoffs, so they are probably the second team who has played the most Counter-Strike in this tournament right next to Eternal Fire. That means they're very warmed up coming into this. They've had a lot of maps to get adjusted to what the tournament meta is for this major, and they've been playing some pretty good Counter-Strike along the way. They are of course led by the dynamic star-powered duo of Hobbit and Electronic, with Boomich being their IGL, with Perfecto and Axel bringing up the rear, bringing great bulk fragging and clutch ability through Perfecto. The biggest knock against this Cloud9 roster is that they don't have a traditional main opper. There's no one to directly combat ZywOo on Vitality, but as opposed to other people in the scene, I'm actually not that worried about it. I feel like CS2 is not as reliant on the op as CSGO was. At least for right now, it feels like if you were ever going to get away with a team that relied on hybrid players or 5 rifles only, this would be the major to do it. When we move over to the Vitality side, they definitely haven't had an easy time in this major. The biggest thing to note is that ZywOo has been sick to open up this tournament. If ZywOo isn't healthy going into this matchup, that's going to be massive for Vitality's ability to be able to win. And we saw how much they struggled without him being at full power. They lost to Eternal Fire to open up the tournament. They then beat Mongols, Imperial, and Complexity in a 3-map series, but they were shaky along the way. They were not the Vitality we expected to run over this tournament and be in dominant form. ZywOo going missing on the fragging department has really hurt their ability, and most importantly, it gets rid of their one biggest advantage, which is a dominant superstar opper versus what Cloud9 can't bring to match it. So then, who has the advantage? I would actually say neither team has a significant advantage over the other. If ZywOo is healthy, then Vitality would have the slight edge. I would expect this series to go 3 maps, and while I really like Cloud9, I think Vitality should win this if ZywOo brings his A1 game. If he doesn't, then Cloud9 have the advantage. I think you could go either way on this, but I'm betting it all on ZywOo to show up in a big way, so I'm taking Vitality. In our next quarterfinal matchup, we have Team Spirit taking on the Faze Clan. And this was supposed to be the finals matchup in my eyes. Faze Clan massively messed up, they were bad early on in the elimination stage, and now we're here with a bad bracket, where 2 teams that should be contending for the title are battling it out early. But it is what it is, we gotta focus on the matchup in front of us, and frankly, I don't know who stops Team Spirit in this tournament. It's going to be a theme throughout this video. I think Team Spirit are set up to roll through the field and win this major. I believe it's firmly theirs to lose. No one else in the field looks as good as they do, and we haven't even seen a 100% donk come alive yet. To get here, Spirit calmly beat Cloud9, Imperial, and then Navi, albeit in 3 maps. Navi are the only team in this tournament to take a map off Spirit. And the scary part is we're talking about Donk not showing up in a big way yet. Donk has a 1.43 rating for the event, matching Shiro. Both of those are good for the 3rd and 4th best performances in the tournament thus far. Donk is underperforming his standards right now. That's the scary part. Meanwhile, on the Faze clan side, they obviously opened up by losing to Heroic and Eternal Fire, and then beating Furia, Imperial, admittedly a close series, and then calmly beating Complexity, their best series in the tournament by far. Up until the Complexity series, Faze looked really rocky. I had very little confidence in them in a playoff situation, but in the Complexity series, they seemed to knuckle down, relax, and bring back some of that Faze form we expect. However, there's a lot of X factors going on here. Rops and Rain are by far my two key players in a matchup like this. Rain, despite being their third or fourth best player, is the rock of this team. When Rain shows up, everybody else feels emboldened. They get like a boost from Rain doing well. So if Rain gets off to a hot start, that gives them a huge boost against a team like Spirit. And then Robs has to absolutely bring his best rifler in the world form to match what Doc might be outputting. All this is to say, I think this is too much for Faze to overcome. They've not shown their world beater form right now, and even when they were at the top of their form, they got absolutely obliterated by this Spirit team in a best of 5 final, and that's not that long ago. I think Spirit win this, and I'll even go out further. I think Spirit have the potential to 2-0 Faze Clan. Moving on, we have what might be the most underrated matchup of the quarterfinals, and that's Eternal Fire versus Navi. I think both of these teams are very evenly matched. They've both had equal problems and successes so far in this tournament. The difference is Eternal Fire have had to claw their way through the opening stage. They've played way more Counter-Strike than Navi has here, and I think we've seen the best and worst of them along the way. And frankly, I think their best is potentially good enough to beat what Navi have to offer. The star of the show for Eternal Fire is Xantares. Xantares is possibly a top 5, if not top 3 rifler in the world, and definitely showing some best in the world potential at this tournament. This is the first time that Xantares has looked fully activated in a LAN environment, and he's been absolutely monstrous. And a special shout out has to go out to their in-game leader, Major, who's not only been good individually throughout the entire tournament with a 1.2 rating thus far, but his calling has been fantastic. The real question mark for Eternal Fire is and always will be, does Woxic show up? He's been inconsistent. The games he has showed up with Xantares, they've looked dominant, but he's not there. We've maybe seen it like 2 times in the entire tournament. And that's really going to matter because Wonderful is a great opera on the Navi side, and if he has free reign, that's going to make life a lot harder for Eternal Fire. Looking over at the Navi side, I think the Lexi B is maybe the best in-game leader at this event right now, right next to Chopper and Kerrigan. His playbook, his strat calling has been immaculate, and it's really helped out Navi when some of their fragging has gone missing. The big question marks for me are, can Emma recover some of his form? Because right now he's been getting exposed as the weakest point of Navi and seems to be getting targeted by the enemy teams. On top of that, JL and Wonderful need to keep up this star level production that they've shown thus far, and frankly Wonderful needs to make that jump to contend as a top 10 opera in the world for Navi to have a chance in this tournament. When I look at the matchup, I really do think these teams are pretty even. I actually have Eternal Fire edging this one out. I'll take Eternal Fire in 3 maps. And then for our final quarterfinal matchup, we have MOUZ taking on G2. G2 riding off the back of their controversial win against Virtus Pro. Meanwhile, MOUZ Sports have cruised through to the next round, playing the second best Counter-Strike in the tournament alongside Team Spirit. So we end up with a very interesting matchup. When you look at the on-paper teams here, G2's star power alone dwarfs what MOUZ can offer, but MOUZ have shown some of the best, most efficient, tactical Counter-Strike so far. All the while, this trio of Jimfat, Zershin, and Brolin, at least in the sample size we have here, have emerged as a 3-man core that cannot be fucked with. All of them plus Torji have above a 1.3 rating thus far, which is incredible output from your 4 players. You really can't ask for more. Meanwhile, G2 have been nothing if not inconsistent and struggling to get here. I mean, let's be honest, an act of God in the middle of Inferno is what allowed them to win a map over Virtus Pro and then close out the series. We don't even know if they should be here if all else was equal. The biggest question mark in this series for me is Nico. Nico, who should go down as maybe a top 2 or top 3 Counter-Strike player, at least for CSGO's history, of all time. He has never shown major winning form when he absolutely needed it. And right now, the door is closing. If Nico's going to win a major, this is one of his best chances to do it. So the question is, will he show up when his team needs him most? Because m0NESY is playing lights out. He's a superstar. Nico is the one who has fallen behind and taken a step back, at least for these games that they've played. If Nico shows up, and we get the Nico we all know and love, G2 are absolutely in the series. However, I do have MOUZ as the heavy favorite. I'm going to take MOUZ in 3 games, which means our semifinals would be Vitality versus Spirit and Eternal Fire versus MOUZ Sports. Now, we're going to go a little quicker here because there's a lot less to speculate about now we've established what these teams have done. Starting off with Vitality versus Spirit, this has the potential to be an absolute banger. Again, this is under the assumption that ZywOo is healthy and he is returned to the form we expect of him, and Vitality are firing on all cylinders. If that is the case, they're absolutely in this series and giving Spirit a run for their money. However, I think Spirit are just better overall. Shiro is definitely a worse opera than ZywOo at his peak. However, no one on Vitality is contesting Donk except for ZywOo himself. So if Donk can do Donk things, it opens up the door for players like Xotics and Magix to get their value off, and it makes Shiro look even better. So it all comes back to what I said originally. If Spirit play at their top form, I don't think anyone in this tournament is stopping them. I will take Spirit to advance to the finals. Now for Eternal Fire versus MOUZ. Eternal Fire have already lost to MOUZ in this tournament, and I do think that this is where Eternal Fire's luck will run out. MOUZ are the better constructed roster, they have better calling, and Zontar's would have to do godlike work. Zboxic would have to show up in a big way for Eternal Fire to contest. I don't doubt that Eternal Fire can take a map off of this team, but it's an outside chance for them to win the series. I will take MOUZ in 3 games to advance to the finals, which means we would have a finals matchup of Team Spirit versus MOUZ. And I think in a one-on-one matchup, 3 maps, MOUZ versus Spirit, I think MOUZ are actually the best team in this field to give Spirit issues. I think MOUZ are a really well-constructed roster. They've played incredible Counter-Strike at this tournament. The big thing that's going to come into question is, can they hold up under pressure? This Spirit core has shown that they don't seem to care who they're playing or where they're playing. They've held it down no matter what the pressure has been. But MOUZ have one key advantage. MOUZ has beaten Spirit in a best of 3 recently. It was at the RMRs to claim first place. However, you can make the argument that that was a low stress match for Spirit as they were already comfortably qualified for this major. It's still a best of 3 win in competition, and that matters a lot for MOUZ's mentality. It means that they have done it. I think MOUZ definitely has a chance. I don't think they're straight out or just getting bodied in this match, but Spirit are the team to beat. They are by far the front runners and the favorites for this major, and I have them winning in 3 maps. Donk's ascendancy to the top will be cemented, Spirit will win this major, and the Spirit era will be upon us. Alright, and those are your pick'ems from a layman's perspective, the Silver's perspective, going into the PGL major at Copenhagen playoffs. Let me know what you guys picked in the comments down below. So far, I am just shy of having the gold coin. I missed it by 1 pick, so my diamond coin odds are officially over, but might as well see if I can get the rest right on the way out, claim that last souvenir package. Hopefully your guys' diamond coin is still alive and well, and I hope you guys get it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll be streaming later tonight, so come check me out. Blah, 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 blah. Later.